Hello, everyone, and welcome to another small screen Star Wars. As always, I'm Julian Mush. I'm joined by Rachel Wilkinson,
Hello.
and we're going to be talking about The Bad Batch, Season 2, Episode 4, Faster, which is an uninspired title for an uninspired episode. And you know what, guys? This might be our fastest episode yet. I have less than 3 pages of notes for this episode. Like, I'm just
It's
hard
not
pressed.
surprising. It was only 25 minutes long.
Yeah.
Like I don't know. My two words to describe this episode were like predictable, and it was like
Boring.
fun but predictable. Like it was just
Oh,
I was like, okay.
I would also use the word cameo as another word to describe this episode.
Cameo?
Yeah, there's two like guest stars. Maybe guest star
I guess
is better.
So. I guess
2 in one episode just feels like sometimes we'll get like guest voice stars in an episode, and that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
Or Rhea Perlman is Sid. She's been around for a while. It's not really a guest star anymore.
No.
But Ernie Hudson.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Shows up in this, and Ben Schwartz.
Schwartz. I didn't realize that was him at first until I looked it up on IMDb and I laughed.
Really?
I was like, "Oh man, that's really funny."
It's so. I mean, his voice. He's just basically doing the whole Sonic shtick. He's kind of got only one shtick, which is like the overconfident idiot. Which is like
pretty much, yeah. See, I only know him super well from Parks and Recreation.
Ah, yes, that's where he started.
Yeah, so I don't really know him as Sonic. Does he voice Sonic?
Yeah, he's also the voice of Sonic in the what are they called?
That new movie or the games?
The live action movies. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so and he's a racer here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he goes fast. He's painted blue. he's got this whole lovable idiot,
overconfident,
thing going. It's very much, if you've seen the Sonic movies, which I recommend, if for nothing else, to see Jim Carrey just absolutely like classic wacky Jim Carrey as Dr. Robotnik. He's so much fun.
Sometimes he's too much for me, though. And is he going to be too much for me? Like,
100%. He's the most.
Like I can, like in The Grinch, love him. Like great. To me, that's like perfect amount
Dumb and Dumber.
of
Amazing.
Jim Carrey. Dumb and Dumber is like, yeah, okay, but like maybe it's just because I haven't seen a lot of these movies for a very long time, but I have a very hard time with like Ace Ventura or.
You kidding me? First of all,
it's too much.
If I can just pause there. This is a PSA for all who are listening. I know this is a Star Wars podcast, but again, not a great episode. So we'll just
there's some filler.
Just side tangent here, which is that, in my opinion, the second Ace Ventura movie, When Nature Calls, is leaps and bounds better than the original. Now, the original has a lot to love. Obviously, the Ray Finkel stuff doesn't age well. It's a problem. But there's other stuff, like when he impersonates the dolphin trainer, for instance. It's a very funny moment.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Do
you have a dolphin? Does he call you at home? That's a great moment. There's a lot of good stuff.
I'm sure there is.
The second movie just doubles down so hard on all the jokes that work, and they work just as well, I opinion. Like, they reuse some jokes, but they work just as well. And then they add others, and they introduce the concept of a person who loves animals hating bats, which is, I think, just inherently is funny to me. And then they add in the whole guano stuff. It's really, again,
I don't understand how you can pull so much Ace Ventura 2 reference out of your brain, out of thin air like that. I've seen that movie
I've seen so many times. I could quote the movie probably not start to finish. There's a lot of moments that like I probably don't remember, but like there's so many good ones. Like when he rolls the slinky down the giant staircase on the top of the mountain. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't even know what you're talking about. This is what I mean, because I probably only saw the movie once.
It's unbelievable. So I might have to add Ace Ventura 2 to our movie.
Oh, no, please don't.
I might. Why? You might get a chance to kind of re-examine it through a fresh set of eyes.
Like I just said, sometimes he's too much for me. So
okay, well, we'll see.
That will be my deciding factor on if I like Sonic or not. But maybe in a Sonic movie, it'd be fine.
We'll do the number 23 or something, and a more obscure Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get into this episode, I'll just do a little housekeeping, or as I used to call it, house cleaning, which I think is a very fun idea. So yeah, follow us on Twitter at Tower Babblecast, Facebook.com/Tower Babblecast. We do this live every Thursday evening, generally around 8:00 p.m. Central. We're a little early today because I have hockey this evening, but you can watch us live, join in the conversation. We will definitely interact with you in the chat room. It's always a fun time. And that you can go to towerbabble.ca/live. That'll give you the Twitch feed, or you can go to YouTube, and we're on YouTube as well. And of course, by the way, the best place to find when we're going live is on Twitter, because that's where you. I think we automate going live tweet. I think that sends a link out. Don't hold me to that. That might be an old setting.
Usually, I think it does that.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Also, a little PSA for those who maybe are pay attention to that. Pay attention to our Twitter and when we are supposed to quote unquote be going live. My girlfriend was using our OBS Studio, our recording setup, to do a thing for a job interview, and so she might have accidentally clicked start streaming instead of start recording.
That's really funny.
Twice. So if there was there might be like an 8-second stream out there of her going and then shutting it down. So
love Kara. That's very cute.
All right, so moving on, let's get into the Star Wars stuff. And this again episode is titled Faster. It is directed by Stuart Lee and Brad Rao as supervising director. Written by Dave Filoni and Jennifer Corbett. They've written all the episodes so far this season. It stars the usual cast of Dee Bradley Baker, Michelle Ang, and Rhea Perlman, but also includes a couple guest stars I mentioned before, Ben Schwartz and Ernie Hudson. Ernie Hudson you might recognize from, of course, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
I think that's his most well-known performance. And then there's also Jonathan Lippow, which I don't know who that is, but he's the announcer who does the races. Again, looking for things to talk about here. Last week we read I haven't read this, so this could go horribly long. We read a review off of IMDb that was like glowing, right? This one, I'm going to read another review. It's their featured review. Only 5 out of 10. It says here, and this is by Ben Rayside, and this was written 2 days ago. It's hard to do a review on this episode. So this person understands our plight.
Yeah.
Especially after last week.
Yes.
Again, we were reminded who the target audience is for the show and how Star Wars animation has always existed. Some weeks you get a perfect episode, and then you have a week like this. Faster does nothing particularly wrong, but that's as much praise as I can give it, and it reminds you of many episodes of Star Wars television that just don't do anything for the overall story. I like the pod racer, or in this episode, riot racing vibe to this event. Nice callbacks to Phantom Menace, but after last week, it's really hard to look upon this with anything but disdain. Ouch.
Oof,
but again, we have to remember that not every episode can be as good as Solitary Clone.
Yes.
Here's hoping that next week will be a bit better. It looks like they're kind of alternating at this point. It's too easy to tell. It's too hard to tell. I mean, only 4 episodes in. But.
Yeah, I would very much agree with that, because it's so hard when you come off of the episode we had last week and then we get thrown into this, because it just doesn't feel like they should go back to back. Yeah, it feels out of place. And like I said, it's fun. There's nothing wrong with it. It's a light kind of fun episode, whatever. But yeah, it just doesn't, compared to last week's, it has no real substance to it. So it's really, I feel bad like that I didn't enjoy it as much, but it's just so difficult when you're like coming off of something that was so great.
There's not much to latch onto here. I mean, this
Yeah.
might sound silly, but like this riot racing idea, I think would have been more exciting if it was pod racing, because we know what pod racing is,
Yeah.
and we have to be introduced. This is similar enough, I understand, but like we're already kind of doing this episode that's really not much of anything.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really, I think I would have been much more invested in what was going on if it was pod racing, because it would, like, maybe if it was a throwback, here's what you could do. And I don't like reworking episodes after the fact. It's easy to be Sunday morning quarterback, but Monday morning quarterback, sorry, but the Sunday morning quarterback is just a regular quarterback.
Yes, it is.
But there's a lot of, for instance, I don't know if you ever played the pod racing N64 game. I'm sure.
No, I own it, but I have not played it. I think maybe when I was a kid I played it.
An absolute delight.
That's what I hear.
It's
Like
very
that's one of the
hard.
games that's actually like quite sought after for N64. Like it's people actually
Mhm.
want to buy it and play it again. But
Yeah, it's not easy. Like it's quite
Mhm.
hard. And it's very easy to get into like a situation where you're getting your butt kicked.
Right.
But it has like all these. So it obviously has Tatooine, right?
Of course.
And
Yeah.
the that and it has it has Anakin as a racer and like all the classic pod racing names that you might know, like
Right.
Sabulba. But it also has like tracks from like other planets and stuff. So what would have been really cool here is like a deep cut reference to the pod racing video game where they go to one of those other planets that we've
That's
never
true.
seen or seen those pod racing courses before, and then they're involved in the pod racing scene. Because then we have a little bit more. We're more invested. We understand what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
We can understand. We might be able to get a sense of like what happened to pod racing. We only saw it once ever, and then never again. Right? Did the Empire shut it down at the end? Like, there's all these things that we could find that we could learn, but instead we get riot racing on a planet we've never heard of.
Yeah.
With against with the villain being some character from Sid's past who we don't know and really don't have any relation to. Cool character though, if I might
Very
add.
cool.
But
I always like
yeah,
because the
the
species is called
gangsters.
Down Twins.
Yeah,
They're really cool characters. It's the same species as is it
the
Ninth
Ninth
Sister?
Sister. Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
from
gonna
like
write. Yeah,
the Jedi Fallen Order because they're so tough and they're so badass. Like he's massive. He's like twice the
yes,
size of Wrecker. So it's a very cool kind of like villain type
yes,
character. But I'm assuming this episode is kind of setting us up for some kind of Sid conflict, right? Like
100%.
it's just that's what this is here for, and eventually we'll probably be like, ah, okay, it makes a little bit more sense in the grand scheme of things as to why we needed this episode, right? But yeah, it just right now it just feels like kind of a filler.
Yeah, we're sowing
Yeah,
the seeds for
yeah,
some type of mistrust
yeah.
of
Yeah,
Sid for
and
later, or some betrayal that she might. Here's what I'm predicting: she's gonna, because obviously in this episode, and we'll talk about it at the moment, but she has this moment where it's like, you know, guys like us, we never change.
yes,
We're always the same, and she's kind of like, no, you'll see, I'm different now, or whatever, and he's like, yeah, whatever, and then what's going to end up happening is she's going to be put in a position where she could sell out the Bad Batch to make herself rich, but she doesn't do it. But then she gets caught with like red-handed with like turning it down, but it looks like she's taking the deal. You know
right,
what I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah,
That's
yeah,
like
something like
that
that.
classic trope. And so they're
Hmm.
like, I can't believe you would sell us out. And she's like, I would never. And then they have to rescue her or something like that.
Yeah,
That's my expectation for
yeah.
that.
It's putting it in your head like, oh, has she changed? Has she not? She has a past, yada yada, right?
Yeah, but we
So
don't really know. I mean, and it's like we don't really know much about Sid's past, so it would have been cool if we spent
no,
more time exploring that in this episode. But we don't even do that. Like it's just
yeah.
it's barely
Well,
touched on.
yeah, you feel like because it's only a 25-minute episode, you easily could have thrown in an extra minute of her talking to
Like what is Malegi?
Milegi talking to him about, maybe he can bring up a story. Maybe he could bring up a little bit more context about their past, right?
Yeah, it's just like that time on blah blah blah
Yeah,
when we did
right?
that thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So no, we didn't even get that, which is easy to do because that's like fun dialogue that's fun to write. So all right, let's just jump into the episode here. Ord Mantell is where we start. Wrecker and Omega play space chess. It has a name, but I can't remember what it is. And they are betting over Mantell mix, which is fun. That's that popcorn.
Yeah, the
thing.
popcorn from the.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
Hunter and in fact they actually tease the double or nothing
Mm-hmm.
idea that he's like, one more game, double or nothing, basically. So and they'd use that again later. It gives Omega an idea. Hunter and Echo are on. They're not in this episode. They're on a mission.
Yeah.
Transporting 50 cases of Nerf nuggets, which I guess are kind of like chicken nuggets.
That made me laugh. I was like, "Oh, that's a really funny kind of
Right.
random." I was like, "Oh,
Right.
Nerf," because Nerf
Like
herders.
giblets.
It's just like, yeah, I'm like, "Oh, they're just on like a chicky nugget delivery."
Yeah, they're just doing some. They're doing some skip the dishes, some
Yeah.
Uber Eats. Yeah,
Yeah.
just to make a little extra bucks. Sid then recruits the rest of the team to be her muscle on some sort of unknown mission. By the way, really dug Tech's like under clothes. Like he's not in his armor at the beginning
Right.
of the scene. And he's got like this like jacket, this like double-breasted jacket with the front open. Kind of looked like a little bit like Luke's shirt from Return of the Jedi. A little
Okay,
bit,
yeah.
but a little bit like beige. And I just think it's. I'd like to see these guys out of their armor more often because it's just so conspicuous.
Right, yeah. I love how it's she's taking muscle, and it's like, okay, like she needs Wrecker.
Yeah,
Like
and
she
then
doesn't.
a child.
Yeah, like a little girl, and like Tech, and
Right.
like Tech can shoot and all. Like we know Tech has like he does have
he
his
was
own set of
badass a
skills,
couple weeks
but
ago.
yeah, he was. But it's just funny when you think of muscle, you don't really think of like
Yeah.
Tech and Omega. Like that's
It's a funny idea. And then then we go to Safa Toma. This is a new planet we've never been to. They take some sort of shuttle there, and it's quote a little rough around the edges. This is it's a little seedy, full of all sorts of different species. A place is seedy when it's full of a bunch of different alien species. I'm not sure why that is. It's just kind of a Star Wars trope at this point, but
yeah. I feel
feels
like
a little alien racist to me. But,
I mean, yeah, that and like anytime there's like big groups of like multi-species gambling, like we just see
Sure.
it all the time, right? So it's yeah, whenever there's a big group and it's all kinds of different people and they're all gambling, it's like okay, yeah, it's our version of like horse track racing or like
yeah, but like when you go to a
fight
horse track,
betting.
it's like fancy, or at
That's
least
true.
some of them are, I suppose. Not
Yeah, I was like,
depends on where
not
you are.
here.
Yeah, I've never been to the Downs. I
Me
kind of want to
neither,
go one
but
time.
we should. Maybe we can go this summer.
Yeah.
We'll wear fancy hats.
Yeah, well, I think just you get to wear the hat. I don't get
fair.
to wear a fancy hat. So Wrecker's really into it. He likes the vibe. Sid is apparently invested in the races here and has her own racer, Tao. Am I saying that right? No, it's
Teo.
not. Teo. Why did I spelt it weird? Teo. It's Tao, and then like dash TA-0, right?
It's like TAY-0,
right,
I think.
TAY-0. A droid voiced by Ben Schwartz. Tech is surprised that she has a droid as a pilot. There's a lot of like, oh, you can't believe you have a droid as a pilot, even though it seems like half of the racers are droids.
Yeah.
So I don't know, whatever.
Well, sorry, what is it? Remind me in the pod racing, isn't Anakin like the only human?
Human, yes.
Right. So I mean, maybe that's why they don't.
Sensitive.
That's why they didn't bring actual pod racing, because they're like, oh shit, like we kind of laid down that pod racing isn't done by humans
we need
unless
tech to do it.
Yeah. So it's like that could be why they kind of changed it up a little bit. And this gives me a little bit more of like the pod racing feels like cars, but this felt like motorcycles to me for whatever dumb reason.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean,
I don't know, just because they're smaller, I guess, and like the tubes that they go in, and it's very like Tron. I don't know.
To me, it reminds me of F-Zero. It's very F-Zero inspired, in my opinion. But which I'm not. Are you familiar with F-Zero?
I don't know what that is.
F-Zero is a video game. It's a Nintendo franchise, starring the one of the main characters is Captain Falcon, who you might recognize from Smash Brothers. But yeah, it's a racing game. It's like all the cars are like float, right? And then some of the levels you race on either inside a tube, right, kind of like you see in this, or fun on a cylinder. So you on the outside of a tube, right? So you kind of go around the outside. That's kind of fun too. It's super fast and like there's like boost pads and like you can do like spin moves to kick people off and stuff. So it's very similar to that.
Gotcha. See, yeah, Adam said this episode kind of reminded him, or like the racing aspect of it, reminded him of Blade Runner, I guess. But I don't.
Is it
I'm
because
not super
the
familiar.
big maybe because of the big ads on
could be, and that's kind of one thing that I kind of picked up too on the ads. I was like, oh, that's funny that like even in Star Wars, in racing, you need like billboard ads.
That's fun.
It's like the advertisements never stop, not even in galaxies far, far away.
That's right. It's an unfortunate side effect of this entire galaxy being invented by people from this galaxy.
Yeah.
All right. So, like I said, Sid is invested in the racing. We get to the racing like very quickly. I think at this point we're like 3 minutes into the episode. Tech is surprised that there's a droid as a pilot. They race modified speeders. He calls himself an artist. The droid does apparently. While they're preparing for the next race, they are interrupted by Grinny Malegi and his crew. voiced by Ernie Hudson. And as we talked about, is a Downton?
Down to in, yeah.
Okay. He's surprised to see her there, Sid. There's that implied past we talked about. And then he has a racer himself. It's a Nasaurian. I'm not sure how to. I'm butchering these alien species names. But this is a species that we actually seen in racing before. One of them was a pod racer in episode 1. So the one with like the antlers.
The antlers.
Yeah, it's kind of like antlers. We have a Justin Long, probably not the real Justin Long, but Justin Long in the chat.
In the
Twitch.
chat.
Yeah.
Oh.
Nice of you to be here.
What's that?
It'd be cool if it was the real Justin Long, though. Just be clear. Not to like take anything away from this one, but
yeah.
Anyway, so this is where it's like so weird to me because like there's so much is just implied, and I'm fine with show don't tell and stuff like that, but like so we don't know who this guy is. We know there's an implied past, fair enough, but then it's like, well, why don't we do our regular side wager on the next race? And we're like, well, what is that? What is that? Like, what do you mean the regular side wager? How much is that? Because we never know how much he owes. It's like a completely obfuscated fact, right? And they just say, and he just walks away just saying, just like old times. We don't know what that means either.
Right.
He says that over and over again in this episode, and I don't know what, what's going on. It's wild. Anyway. And sorry, yeah, Justin Long is saying, wait, who's the real Justin Long? I apologize. Not the real Justin Long. That's not really a fair way to frame it. The Justin Long made famous in such films as Waiting and Live Free, Die Hard, among others. Those are the first two that come to mind. Can you name one?
I don't know. Isn't he Canadian?
He might be. Let's find out. But can you name a single Justin Long?
Other than Waiting, he's just in so much stuff. Isn't he in
he's
like
definitely
anything?
American.
Oh, is he? I thought he was in some of the American Pie movies, or like not American Pies, but you know what I mean. Those goofy, funny movies.
Tusk, Jeepers Creepers, Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Jeepers Creepers,
Dodgeball,
yes. Galaxy Quest. That's what it is. Maybe.
Right. Okay.
Accepted. Yeah. Okay.
How old would he have been in Herbie Fully Loaded? Man. Okay.
No, I'm thinking of Accepted. It's like he's in one of those college movies, and that's that one where they create their own
not just
university
another teen movie, basically.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Again, another tangent. Justin Long as an actor he's okay. That's my opinion on that. He was here. You know what he's most known for? He was the Mac in those PC and Mac ads.
Right.
Remember that?
Yeah, you're right.
That's what
really funny.
That's where he's most known from. But hey, glad to have you here, Justin Long. The Mac, who needs him? What we're doing here, all on PCs. So
I'm on a Mac at my house.
Damn it. Okay, so back to the racing. The race itself is, like I said, similar to pod racing. There's some added obstacles. There's weapon usage in this. They can use blasters, and they have shielding. In fact, a spectator gets shot.
Right, yeah.
Just dies. And then everyone's like, yay!
Yeah, no one cares.
I do actually like the announcer kind of, the whole announcer shtick is fun too. He's like, just a reminder that we are not liable for any dismemberments or whatever.
Injury or death.
Yeah, that's funny. Which I guess is partially true in real life too. If you go to like a NASCAR and like a piece of a car flies out and into the stands, you could certainly die. And I guess
so, yeah.
I don't think you can sue NASCAR for that. So
probably not, no.
All right, so we understand the concept of how riot racing works. I guess the only other kind of thing that's important to know, and it had been set up previously, is that the left tunnel is off limits.
Yes.
So, that's all we know.
Very obvious setup that they're going to go into it at some point.
Yeah, right. And so during this initial race with the first bet, Greeny seems to have a team. Like he's got like 2 racers on payroll, not just the champ, but like another person who takes the fall, who they use to like team up on other racers, and that's how they take out Teo's ship with this like grapple saw maneuver.
Yeah.
And so after the race, so he loses because he gets destroyed. The saw cuts into his ship, and he like absolutely like destroys.
Destroys.
Yeah. And I kind of like how they have it set up, like where it's at the end of the tunnel, so they kind of like explode out of the tunnel. That's kind of a cool
Mm-hmm.
visual. So after the race, while scavenging the wreckage of Teo's ship, they are again interrupted by Grinny, who is there. Grinny is not a great name for a gangster, in my opinion, but I'm not gonna. What's his last name? It's Grinny something. It's
Maligi or
Maligi
Malegi?
is a little bit better, I guess.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll use that if I remember it.
She mostly just refers to him as Maligi or Malegi, whatever it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
yeah, okay. So I'll try that. I've already have it written down here as Grinny, but
Yeah.
so it might be too challenging. So they're there to scavenge their ship, collect Teo's body, basically, and Grinny shows up immediately to collect his winnings. And I felt like this is a little like bit of a gangster faux pas, in my opinion, which is like you got to give the person like at least a day to get like you know what I mean, or at least an hour. Give them
well,
like an
yeah.
hour
Yeah.
to
That's
collect
what
their money. They're
you're
literally
right.
still picking up the pieces from their ship. Like, give it a minute. And he's like, "That's not how this works." And I'm like, "Okay, I guess if you're really trying to be a dink about it."
Yeah. You're
Uh,
right, though. You should get like a bit of time.
right,
But,
like she wouldn't have even had time to go to the ATM. You know what I mean? Like,
should have had it on her. You're not
yeah, like,
supposed to bet money you don't have.
right. Well, sure, I suppose. Tell that to people who love gambling.
Yeah.
So he comes to collect, and she clearly doesn't have the money. I'm good for it, which is also a kind of like a classic trope. And Omega proposes a double down to clear Sid's debt. One more race,
Mm-hmm.
and if we win, we get Sid, or we pay double. And that race is going to happen the next day. And again, this is kind of where I kind of like dig Grinny's vibe a little bit, because he's a gangster, but he's like a gangster with like he understands the rules a little bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
He's like, when she asks like how much does she owe, she's like a little more than more than you will have, kid, and and then when he's like, okay, I'll take the bet, and they're like, hey, for your guys' sake, I hope you guys have the money for this, because if this doesn't go well, you better know what you're getting yourselves into. Like,
well, yeah.
He's not like trying to dupe them into this. He's like, okay, if you're gonna do it, then fair enough, but just be aware of what you're getting yourself into. And I think that's fair.
Yeah, he's not trying to like double cross them, or like, what's the word when you're like a shark, like a pool shark,
loan shark.
Yeah, whatever that kind of thing. He's just kind of be like, all right, like just letting you know, this is
probably a bad idea.
real. Yeah.
yeah.
This isn't you playing, games.
Well, this episode certainly feels like it has no stakes, so
That's true.
Well,
That's true.
Which
is wild to double down on something when you don't even know what the original bet is.
Yeah, well, because he's like, well, how much is it? More than you can afford. We'll pay double.
Yeah.
Could be millions of credits.
Yeah.
And then, like, I like how Wrecker's like, we don't know anything about racing.
Yeah.
So they get to work, and by the way, Grinny keeps Sid as collateral, so she's like separated from the group, which also makes the episode a little less entertaining. So they get to work with Tech working to repair Teo, and Wrecker is collecting parts. There's a funny moment with Teo, where it's like, I'm ready to race. Oh my god, what happened to my arms and legs?
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
He does add like a good comedic touch, I'd say, to
100%.
this episode. Like, he does very, very well. Ben Schwartz, I liked him in this episode.
He's just a little much for me sometimes. So
fair enough.
Wrecker suggests that they use their like military style skills to take out Grinny. They're like, why do we waste our time? Let's just go kill this guy. But Tech doesn't think that's a good idea. Basically saying that in the real world, you can't just go around killing people whenever you want, because there's going to be repercussions, and we can't afford to get ourselves involved in that kind of thing. So whatever kind of excuse the script needs, but he's right. They can't just go around killing whoever they want. And so Tech also brings up how annoying it is that they've had to deal with Sid's past more than once. The whole situation with the baby Rancor comes to mind.
Right. Yeah.
They keep getting dragged into her kind of underworld dealings, and that's really not what they're here to do. You know what I mean? They're here to do jobs, and they keep getting pulled into her bullshit, and it's like it's not a thing for them. They're not happy.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
So that's kind of the first little bit of like hinting at maybe the Bad Batch might be running out of patience with Sid and her
Yeah.
her whole deal. Meanwhile, we have a scene with Sid and Grinny where Grinny has a drink, and the drink looks hilariously tiny in his giant hand,
Right?
and also like not great. Like it doesn't look very good. That I know that doing glass is extremely difficult in animation, especially with like a beer bottle, for instance. It's very hard to do to get
Yeah.
the physics of the liquid inside right, and to get the transparency of the bottle. So they don't really even try here. It looks like a beer bottle from a PlayStation 2 video game. And listen, I'm not here to like nitpick stuff, but in this case, yeah, I am gonna nitpick. It's just like this whole episode, it just kind of feels like I don't know. We'll have this scene and he'll have a drink, but we'll just use stock beer bottle and what's it called, assets. Anyway, he's suggesting, and we talked about this earlier, that it's just like old times, that they don't change, that these us gangster types, we're always gonna be in the thick of it. And Sid seems to kind of like, her look on her face here is kind of like one of like, am I kind of like that, or like I kind of
Right, yeah.
I don't want to be like that, but he's kind of he's kind of cutting too close to what's the phrase I'm looking for here? He's getting a little too close, hitting too close to home. That's
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha, yeah. I was like, hitting the nail on the head. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so any thoughts on this? I'll pause here. I'm just kind of
Yeah, I mean, like, kind of like what we said before, is I wish there was like a little bit more substance about their backstory here. Like, I think they had enough time that they could have maybe added a bit of a story or a touch of a flashback. I don't know, just like something to add to make this have a little bit more weight to it and a little bit more substance, because right now it's just very general. And we can see that Sid is either trying to be a different person or wants to think of herself as a different person, and he thinks that she's not, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the conflict here, but we don't really have any sort of background on her and how she used to be. So
now thinking about this, I think it would have been more fascinating. It's you don't want to. I don't think you want to use this trope too often, but Gritty should have taken Omega as collateral, and the reason for that is it would allow for us to explore, because now Tech and Wrecker are much more invested, right?
Yes,
and it would allow them to probe Sid for information on, like, tell us more about this gangster. Why
either way,
how do you get in this situation? All this stuff. But instead, we get this one scene where it's not even Sid talking. It's the gangster talking about her, and she doesn't even have anything to say. And it's like, ugh.
You're right.
It's just not interesting.
Because you could have two sets of conversations there. You could have the conversation that Wrecker and Tech would be having with Sid, as well as the conversation that like Omega could be having with,
and because we could get much more. All we get now is that line at the end where watch your backs, right?
Yeah,
and that's all we really
get. A little
get.
more mysterious, I guess. But you're right. It's like that's what I mean. I think there's just some missed opportunities here to give us just a little bit more context. I want the juicy bits. I want to know why she used to be this gangster kind of on his level, and you know what I mean? Like, I want to know what that's about. So
on the other hand, maybe it's just a fun racing episode.
Maybe just in the long run it won't matter, so we'll see.
Well, I don't think we'll be thinking about this episode very much.
No, probably not.
So we talked about, meanwhile, the drink, yada yada yada. So back at the pit, while discussing Teo's chances, Tech is analyzing the races and making calculations to better improve their odds of winning. And Teo, despite saying the exact opposite thing in the previous scene with Wrecker about making a miscalculation in his last race, tells Tech that he's doing it all wrong and that racing isn't about calculations. It's about strategy and skill. So I just felt like that was really odd, because he's like talking to Wrecker and he's like, well, you didn't win their last race. And he's like, well, that's because I made a miscalculation. I'm not going to do that again. Right. And then he tells Tech, well, it's not about calculations. It's about these other intangibles.
Yes.
and it's like, what the fuck are you even talking about? You're just I mean, It's possible that Teo's completely full of shit.
Well, that's probably
But-
kind of it, right? Like he's
Yeah.
just talking himself up to whoever he's talking to. It doesn't, just
He-
switches it up depending on.
He's
who
got a real
he's-
sick strut, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
He's when he gets hit by that fucking speeder, it's
I
so
know.
funny. It's so funny. And like I obviously that's the joke, but I just thought that they nailed it there. So
Yeah.
he's like walking away, he's like, "Well, you've got none of that," and then gets crushed. And I think dies. I think they kill him. I think he's dead.
I don't think he's dead. I think it's just that he's broken again, and they don't have
Yeah.
time to fix him before the
Right.
race. They're just like, oh shit.
Well, I like how his last line is, "I regret nothing."
Yeah.
So they run it. Yeah. So he gets hit by the thing, and they don't have time. So that's why Tech has to step up to be the racer. Of course, by the way, Grinny just happens to be right there at the time, to kind of witness this whole thing, including, by the way, the racer who gets out of his ship and then just like looks at them and is like just shrugs.
Just shrugs and walks away. Yeah. It's like,
yeah, like I don't know, like oops. Just don't stand on the race course and you won't get hit by cars.
Pretty much, yeah.
So Grinny's there and he's like ready to be like, well, you got to forfeit then. But no, Tech is going to be the racer. I like Grinny's line here, actually, the classic one. "I'll never stop a fool from giving his life to make me rich." So that's a good that's a good gangsta line right there. So we get to the second race, and well, technically the third one. We see like the beginnings of one. Then we get a full race where Teo loses. Now this is the third, but the second full race. This is the double down race, and all the racers are lined up, and we get intros for all of them. There's some fun Easter eggs here. So first we get the Riot champion, and that's Grinny's racer Jet Venom. And then we got Bosco, the bad mom, again, I can't talk today. Bosco, the Mad Bomber Bricks, who seems to also work for Grinny.
Yes.
And then Steel Claw Kane, Vicious Vid Centauri, Haxon the War Gnome Trajanix. This one's fun because it's a modified commando droid. And then you get Quick Draw Quasar. This one's my favorite one, by the way. A B1 battle droid head on a protocol droid body. Which, of course, obviously a reference to episode 2.
Right.
The C-3PO head
Yes,
switcheroo.
yes,
Right?
yeah.
Die, Jedi scum!
Yeah. Yeah.
But I love how he's doing the little like quick draw like shoot pistol fingers thing here.
Yeah.
It's so funny. And then you get the Trickster Flash Raktor, a pink and blue painted protocol droid, and then Hyper Rod and his 7 Deuces blaster, also a protocol droid. So the it stacks up here is 1, 2, 3, 4 droids versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 non-droids.
Right.
So
And
there you
Tech
go.
obviously being the only human.
Yes. Right.
Yes.
And Tech, by the way, they're doing these big announces, and then
Yeah. And
Tech.
Tech?
And
Yeah.
then, that's it. That's his full name.
Just Tech? Yeah.
Just Tech. All right. Okay. And so we get this really cool starting light animation because it's like this like RGB ring light basically that they have for their starter starting light, which is fun. And we get lots of shots of pit droids. Always fun to see pit droids. This is where they're supposed to be. This is like the only time it makes sense for them to be around, but we see them all the time anyway. And then Tech gets off to a slow start on the race. His strategy is the old slow and steady wins the race type maneuver. I guess he's trying to hang back and like kind of wait other racers take themselves out.
Yeah, let them shoot each other in. Yeah. Which I would also do, but
yeah, sure. It's called strategy, he says.
Mm-hmm.
But Wrecker's response is, no, it's called losing. Which is funny. And then we get some very wacky music, like techno-y wacky music. And on the first lap, Tech avoids the death trap tunnel and also drops his weapons in the pit so he can gain more speed and maneuverability. He decides that he's not catching up enough and he doesn't think he needs the weapons, so he drops the weapons, but he's still in last place. So to catch up, Tech uses the death trap tunnel, which you could have seen coming a mile away, but is chased by another racer. Tech is able to F-Zero his way. Now that we know what F-Zero is, he's able to F-Zero his way along the inside of the tube to get through the broken piece of the track. The other racer, I think, dies.
Yeah, he like falls
Yeah,
out of the track. We
I
don't really
think
know
he's-
where that goes,
I
but
think
they
he's
called
for
it a
sure
death.
dead.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
called it a death trap before. So
Uh-huh. Yeah. I think it's funny that they used a non-droid pilot to chase him, and
yeah,
then he just it's implied that I guess he's dead. So there you go. For a kids show, that's fun. Don't ask questions about what happened to that racer, kids.
yeah,
You're not going to want to get an answer on that. So this gets him into second place after he gets out of that tunnel, where he gets into the same position that Teo was, and he's between between Jet Venom and Bosco, and they try to do the same move on him, but he dodges, and then they end up sabotaging themselves. And you don't see what happens exactly. You see a big cloud of dust, and then the last second, Tech comes racing out, finishes first,
yes.
surprising no one. And I don't know. Again, I like kind of the destruction and some of that stuff. That's kind of cool. They get out of the racer. Tech gets a standing ovation, and he gives a little salute. That moment's interesting because I think it's the first time that anyone would probably have ever cheered his name.
Right? You know? Yeah. Oh, for sure. It'd probably be different. Definitely weird for him, being the center of attention, right? In that aspect.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I saw someone tweeting about this episode, and they said, they're like, oh, it's nice to see Tech get his own like kind of arc and yada yada, but they're like, but we all know what that means. ... Sad face. They just like think he's gonna get killed off the show. And I was like, I don't necessarily like know if that's what they're setting up here. It's like, oh look, Tech is getting his moment and he's getting his own little arc, and then we're gonna kill him off.
Yeah, but like the rest of the Tech, like Hunter and Echo don't even get to see.
Yeah.
And so here's the thing. It's a little deeper than this for me. I think yeah, it's the first time he's probably ever got his name cheered or anything, but it's also a moment where I think he's able to apply his intelligence and skills to something that's not combat related.
Yeah, for sure.
He's able to prove to himself that he's, worth more than his military abilities. So I think that's worth something.
That, and it's like he's worth a little bit more than a droid too, right?
Sure.
Because it's like he kind of keeps getting not compared, but I feel like a lot of people just keep comparing his character to Echo, and how do they differ from each other, because Echo is mostly a droid at this point. And yeah, I feel like a lot of the time it's like, oh well, Tech is smart, but so are droids, so it's like you could just have a droid instead.
Sure.
Like how else is he useful, right? So
well, Teo's not that smart.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyway, I just think it's a nice moment for Tech.
Yeah, no, of course.
I like the little salute. I think that was fun. I would have liked the crowd to be like, yeah, salutes are cool. Woo. That would have been fun. So that's the race. Any other comments on the kind of last race? Again, very predictable, I think.
Yeah, not really. I think we all kind of knew. We figured that this was going to be the outcome, right? Like it's either going to go one of two ways. Either they're going to lose and there's going to be some sort of conflict that they have to deal with, right, with these gangsters, or they pull it off and they win and it's all good, right? Yeah. So it was, like I said, fun, but predictable. So.
Right. I mean, predictable being the kind of the key word here.
Yes.
Like, man, all you have to tell me was the setup for this episode, and I could have told you exactly how this episode went.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so they go to pick up Sid from Grinny, who honors the deal. All right, so it's a point for him, and she tells the rest of them, she's like, oh, I owe you one, but she kind of puts back on her mask very quickly. And then I thought this was an interesting choice, which is like one of Grinny's goons is like eyeing up his blaster.
Yeah.
And then on their way out, he looks like he's going to try to shoot him in the back, but Grinny kind of holds him off.
Yeah, well, wasn't he one of the racers?
Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
I thought he was one of the racers, yeah.
He's also a goon.
Yeah. No, I know.
And then so Grinny stops them to give them advice, and he says that loyalty is admirable, but with Sid it doesn't always go both ways.
Mm-hmm.
Watch your backs. So I guess the implication here is that at one point Sid betrayed Grinny in some way.
Yes, yeah.
And maybe Grinny was on Sid's crew, and she sold him out or something like that. Anyway, who knows? Wish I knew.
Yeah.
Couldn't tell you. But that's literally the entire episode. Is basically 2 pages of notes. It's not really much. Final thoughts on this week's episode?
Yeah, I mean, it was all right. It's like we kind of honestly covered it all. Really, it was just a little disappointing where it's placed, and I'm curious about its placement. But I guess we'll know a little bit more as to why it's here, in the coming episodes, and maybe it'll have not more weight to it, but maybe it'll make more sense once we
Well,
see.
I'm sure it will, but
Yeah,
I'll take an episode like this early in a season over late in the season any day.
that's
Right?
true. That's true. It's a fine like 4th episode. It's just, yeah, I almost.
No
I
one's
don't
going to be
know.
looking back on the Bad Batch thinking, you know what really worked
Do you
for
know what
me?
was really good? That episode 4.
Faster.
Yeah. Faster. I think it's just.
They couldn't even come up with a good title for it.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I think it's just extra frustrating because of how good last week was. And you're coming off such a high and how incredible that episode was, that this one just very much pales
I
in
wonder.
comparison. So
like, I mean, this is not, I don't. This is just me speculating. I'm sure they plan out seasons much more than I'm.
I'm sure they
do.
do.
But
yeah,
like, is it possible that this is like leftover episode from last season or something?
I don't think so. I mean, but it could have fit in somewhere last season.
You could squeeze this episode literally in anywhere between episodes 4 of last season.
Yeah.
Any literally, I guess basically except for the finale, it would fit
pretty much.
So
yeah. But it's giving me, I don't know, because it's sort of like how when we were watching Book of Boba Fett, but the best episodes were kind of the Mando episodes
of Mandalorian.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, I really hope this doesn't happen to Bad Batch, where like the best episodes are all about,
or episodes of the Clone Wars,
or like it's like a Clone Wars episode, right? Like, it's not that it's a Clone Wars episode, but you know what I mean. It's like the Bad Batch aren't even in it,
so that's
but
it's cool.
The main characters aren't even in it. When
that's
you're like,
true.
Okay, so it's kind of funny, but yeah.
The thing is, though, I have more confidence in that because we've seen very good episodes with the main characters of the show.
Yes,
and so including like those ones on Ryloth especially stand out to me. Although they also don't have the biggest role in those episodes either.
Yeah.
But again, the finale, the fight in, we talked about this last week, but the confrontation with Crosshair on that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Tons of good content, but yeah. Well, I mean, we'll see where it goes, I guess, and yeah, hopefully we just get something a little bit more meaty next episode, because I want just a little bit more out of the next episode.
Is if meaty is what we're looking for, this episode is vegan. Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So on that note, we'll wrap it up there. I'll just this might be a new land speed record for us in terms of
right,
how short an episode is, but a short episode of the Bad Batch calls for a short episode of a recap of it.
Honestly, yeah.
Yeah. So again, we'll be back next week, obviously, with more Bad Batch. But in the meantime, what we'll have, because tomorrow I'll be getting back with Rachel and Jeremy to do our 6th annual Toby Awards, where we break down our favorite film and television from the last year. I know we're getting late into January, but we're still doing top lists for 2022.
Yeah.
So get ready for that. And then so that'll be on the regular Tower Babble podcast feed on the weekend, probably on Saturday. And then we'll be back next week, same time Thursday, to record live the next episode of the Bad Batch. Do we know what that episode's called? Let's double check. Entombed. That's a cool name. Entombed.
Oh, okay. That sounds at least intriguing.
Yeah. I mean, I think last week we said faster. Okay.
Yeah. All right. That's
yeah. So entombed, very cool idea. Who knows what that? Who knows who will be? Maybe is it someone is entombed or something is entombed? I mean,
ooh, could be so many different things.
There's so many things that could be tombed. What about out-tombed? Anyway, really grasping at straws here. This episode.
Yeah.
If you want to help support the show, you can do so by heading over to patreon.com/TowerBabbleCast. And for as little as $5 a month, you can get access to our monthly film clubs. This week we'll be doing The Saint from, I think, 1997.
Yes.
So look forward to that. That's a pick from Jeremy. And then after that, who knows? Maybe we'll do some Ace Ventura.
Oh, God.
I don't know. I don't think isn't it your pick next?
Is it? I guess it is. Yeah.
I think it is. So start thinking about that. But anyway, that'll be at the end of the month, which is coming up pretty quick. It's already the 19th. And again, we have tons of back catalog on that, so you can get access to all that as well, including, by the way, access to the Discord, where you can join our conversation about Star Wars or about really anything in the nerd culture fandom area, and chat with us. And it's kind of just like an open chat room with all fans of TOB and the hosts and producers here. And of course, you can always chat live in the live chat with us, just like Justin Long did with us today.
Yes.
By heading over to towerbabble.ca/live when we go live, and again at Tower Babblecast on Twitter to keep track of when that's happening, and facebook.com/towerbabblecast. All right, well, on that note, we will wrap things up. Next week is Season 2, Episode 5, Entombed. And until then, may the Force be with you.
I think it's your pick next. Because I picked for December.
Oh, you did the Christmas pick.
Yeah, okay. Jeremy picked January, so you should pick February.
All right, well, I got to think about that now.
Yeah.
Right, maybe it'll be a
and then we're going to get into some sketchy times on if I can
yeah, that's true.
Be on the podcast for March and April.
How hard could it be? Crying babies? Come on.
It's not about crying babies. It's about, like, if I can, yeah, we'll see. Because, so we have...